Hey you're watching a clip from the DynamiteGizmo podcast. This is not the full episode, but if you want to see the full episode, make sure to click the link in the description. And remember, like, comment, subscribe. Do it now. Here's the clip. We're going to move on to Charles Oliveira, the man that Ilie Topuria will be facing this Saturday. And my goodness, there's a lot to say about this man. A lot. But first, let me just say this. If there's anyone in the UFC who truly deserves the nickname La Leyenda, it is Charles Oliveira. He's got a long, rich, emotional journey through the UFC. He even held the lightweight title at one point, only to lose it in a way no one in the sport had ever done. But before we get to that, let's take a step back for a moment. Charles Oliveira joined the UFC all the way back in 2010. He won his first 2 fights and then lost a couple. He had a no contest, won a few more, then lost some more. It was a roller coaster of inconsistency. Up and down. He was a quitter. He was seen as a quitter. Or at best, some people were even calling him a mid-tier gatekeeper. He had a moment of reckoning. After losing to Paul Fielder in 2017, things finally changed. He told himself, I'm not just fighting anymore, I'm chasing greatness. And from that moment on, MMA stopped being just a job. It became his life. Prior to that, Charles was killing himself trying to make featherweight. That weight cut was brutal. It was draining him. So he made a decision to move up to lightweight permanently, and that's when things turned around. He looked healthy, strong, and focused. He went full-time to shoot a box Diego Lima, one of Brazil's top MMA gyms. That camp toughened him mentally and physically. He wasn't just relying on his jiu-jitsu anymore. He sharpened his Muay Thai, adding devastating knees and elbows to his arsenal. And maybe most important of all, he leaned heavily into spirituality and family. He made a promise to them, his family, his kid, his wife, and to himself that things were going to change. And sure enough, they did. And after that Paul Fielder loss, Charles went on a dominant 12-fight win streak. He took out names of guys such as Clay Guida, Jim Miller, Jared Gordon, Kevin Lee, Tony Ferguson, and eventually the UFC gave him a shot at the belt. Now at the time, Khabib Nurmagomedov was the reigning lightweight champion. But after his emotional win over Justin Gaethje and the death of his father, Khabib announced his retirement. He vacated the belt. That opened the door for Charles Oliveira to face Michael Chandler for the vacant title at UFC 262. Chandler nearly won it in round 1. As crazy as that sounds, he had Charles in trouble. But Charles powered through and came back with a vengeance, and in 19 seconds in round 2, he dropped Chandler with a left hook and submitted him with a rear naked choke. The moment finally came. This was it. Charles Oliveira was now the UFC undisputed lightweight champion of the world. Then came his title defenses. He submitted Dustin Poirier in round 3 at UFC 269. Another clean, dominant finish over a monster of a fighter in the lightweight division. And then, in May of 2022, he was set for a second title defense. This time it was against Justin Gaethje. But this is where things took a brutal turn. At the weigh-ins, Charles came in at 155.5 pounds, just half a pound over the lightweight limit. Now that might sound small, But for title fights, there's no leeway at all. So he was immediately stripped of the belt on the scale. It was the first time an UFC champion lost their title at the weigh-ins. The UFC had made the announcement. Charles Oliveira is no longer champion. Only Gaethje can win the title tomorrow night. If Charles wins, the belt remains vacant. It was absolutely devastating. Fans were outraged. Many of them, including other fighters, accused the commission's scale of being off. But the UFC stood by the ruling. Charles still took the fight and submitted Gaethje in round 1. But when he walked out of the cage, he had no belt. And it was back as a vacant title. So fast forward a few months later, in October of 2022, the title was back on the line. And Charles was rightfully given the chance to reclaim it. But at this time, he had to face the current number 1 pound-for-pound fighter, Islam Makhachev. At that time, he wasn't number 1 pound-for-pound. I'm saying right now he is. Islam dominated. Submitted Charles in round 2 via an arm triangle choke. And that ended Charles' streak. And once again, he was the underdog. Since then, Oliveira's bounced back with a huge win over Beneil Dariush, who will also be on this card tonight or Saturday night. He took a loss to Arman Tsarukyan and most recently avenged Chandler again with another big win. Which brings us to this weekend. Charles gets his second shot at reclaiming the belt that he never truly lost. This fight means everything to real fans. Yes, Ilia Topuria is undefeated. Yes, he's dominant. Yes, he could become pound-for-pound number 1. But he's still fresh. He's still climbing. Charles Oliveira, on the other hand, has been through it all. He went from being forgotten to being the most beloved man in the UFC. He's 35 years old. This could be his last chance. To put it into perspective, Dustin Poirier, who started a year later than Charles, is only 1 year older than Oliveira and is retiring next month after the BMF fight with Max Holloway. So now I ask you, do you want Oliveira to win? Do you want to see the legend rise one last time? Or would you rather see the new blood, Ilia Topuria, come in, take the throne, and start a new era? Let me know what you think.
Tap here to watch the full episode of the Dynamite Gizmo podcast.